Next presentation, Integrating Reading and Writing, Closing the Circle, with my wonderful friend Kim Flachmann. Kim is a St. Louis kid who moved west and fell in love with California and the California State University system. Her passion is teaching reading and writing. She earned a BA in English at Washington University in her hometown and then went on to her first teaching job at Morton College in Chicago, where she founded the developmental English program. 3 years later, Kim headed west to California State University in Bakersfield, where she currently directs the writing program at CSU Bakersfield, including developmental, freshman composition, upper division comp, and the graduate teaching assistant program. She also coordinates the Writing Across the Curriculum program. She has received numerous awards for her teaching, including the 1999 CSUB Outstanding Professor Award, the 2007 Rhetorician of the Year from the Young Rhetoricians Conference, and in 2009 was honored by California Association of Teachers of English with a Classroom Excellence Award for college teaching. Her publications include numerous articles on reading, writing, and literature, 2 freshman composition readers for Pearson, The Prose Reader and Nexus, and a developmental series entitled Mosaics. This session will focus on the connection between reading and writing, beginning with how the skills might work best together in your curriculum and ending with some teaching practices and resources that you could use as soon as tomorrow in your own classes. Kim, are you ready to begin?
I am ready to begin. Thank you, Amy.
Yay. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to make sure I had my screen open for you. I know I can't hear you right now, but I'll be able to hear you later. Welcome, and thank you for attending this workshop. As Amy said, I'm talking about the integration of reading and writing. I honestly don't think there's any other way to teach writing or reading without integrating them. And just as we start, I would like you to take a few minutes. If I could, I'd just reach out and look at your writing, but I can't. So I want you to just think or write some notes to yourself just to focus. How do you learn? How are learning and teaching related for you? How can we all keep improving our teaching? Just take a moment to focus yourself just like you would your class. Obviously, you are all interested in improving your teaching, just like I am, or you wouldn't be listening to this webinar. And it's wonderful that Pearson is hosting this. So a little background on where I am coming from when I say reading and writing are connected. In my mind, reading and writing are companion activities that engage students in the creation of thought and meaning, either as readers interpreting a text or as writers constructing one. That is what our dear students are doing every day of their lives, reading and writing for us. And it seems only natural that we would help them relate those skills. So here's the heart of what I think is going on with the integration of these skills. We need to make them interactive. We can't just say, here's reading and writing, and we sure hope you connect them in your minds. My suggestion to you is that you focus on discovery rather than prescription. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you help students find out for themselves how a reading, for example, is working, or even how their own writing is working, rather than telling them, they have a better chance, number one, of remembering it, and number two, of using it themselves in their reading and writing. You can tell them. Many publications, many teachers simply tell the students what they need to learn and then have them write an essay and see if they got it, or take a test and see if they got it. But what I'm finding out and what research tells us is that letting them discover on their own how this works rather than telling them is the key to their success in reading and writing. Here's the secret formula. I cannot tell you how important this has become in my own teaching. What the research tells us is that the optimum learning for our students takes place in the middle of this circle that you're seeing now. Thinking, reading, and writing have to be going on at the same time. Now, that sometimes is a little tough, unless you're assigning a research paper where they have to take notes and then read their notes to write their paper. They are reading and writing at the same time there. It's a little forced, but they have to be, unless they can memorize all their notes. But in daily assignments, weekly assignments, as you get them ready to write an essay, it's tougher to get them engaged with their reading before they write. In my old way of teaching, I used to think it was so convenient that I had Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. I had them read on Monday, pre-write on Wednesday, and write on Friday, something like that, very segmented. I have now learned that is not the way to teach reading and writing. They have to be integrated every day, and they have to be functioning as learners in the center of this circle. So for a second, this is how I'd like you to see the reading-writing process. Not the reading process and the writing process, but the reading-writing process. Pre-reading, reading, post-reading, pre-writing, writing, revising, editing as companion activities. So let me just tell you a little bit of what got me very tuned in to the connection of reading and writing. This is ACT's data from 2005. And I have looked for an update for this. I just looked again for an update, and they are not updating this research. I suspect it's because it pretty much stays the same. The ACT isolated reading complexity as a critical factor by analyzing the results of the 1.2 million high school seniors in 2005 who took the well-known ACT. What they learned was, at college entrance, only 51% of the students were ready to handle the reading requirements of a typical first-year college course. That is frightening. It's not surprising because our students are not tuned in half the time when they're in high school. It's certainly not the teacher's fault in my community. They're practically standing on their heads helping these students learn. But the students are not learning how to read at a level we need them to read in college. So here are some strategies that will help them get there. And I'd like to take you through these 10 strategies that I hope will change your teaching. They certainly have changed mine. And that you will consider using in reading when you teach your students. Yes, I know they don't want to write in their books because they want to resell them, but they need to, and they can still resell them, although it kills me. Oh my goodness, I want them to keep every book they ever learned from, ever, 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 just like we all did. They should be just like us, shouldn't they? Here's the first one, and I've highlighted parts of the strategy that you should focus on. Personal annotations are just putting memories, thoughts, connections, associations in the margin as students read. There is also some great research that shows us if the students just have a pencil in their hands, pen, pencil, writing utensil, they are reading a different level. It just fires different cells in their brains, and they are reading much more interactively than if they just sat back, put their feet up, and read. The active and passive reading that you and I learned at school, we didn't know kind of how to do it, but we were told to read actively. I don't know, I thought that meant stay awake. But if they're doing something, they are performing in the center of those 3 circles that I showed you. Second strategy, think aloud. They can read aloud. Yes, it's slow reading, but all good readers are slow readers. And if they read and talk about what's on their mind, think aloud in class. I make my students do this out loud, and I do it with them. Or, again, if they just write what's occurring in their mind in the margins. It's a goal. It's reading with a purpose, which we know is best. Chunking. This is a true term in the literature, chunking. It is called chunking. They draw horizontal lines where they see sections of the reading. Not necessarily the paragraph, not at a heading, but, oh, the working, where he's working. Oh, his job ended here. Draw a line. Then they label each chunk with their language, and they've got a chunked essay. Graphic organizers. Probably most of you know what graphic organizers are. By the way, if you Google graphic organizers, thousands will come up for you. And you can use them as frames for your students to fill in, or you can teach your students to create a graphic organizer. Graphic organizers are pictures, drawings of what's going on in the reading, how the ideas are related, circles that are related to one another, clusters, webbing, mapping. Those are a form of graphic organizers, but they can be so much more intense. You can have the Venn diagram, you can have cause effect with arrows showing where the cause was and what the effect was. There are really tons of graphic organizers that you could choose from. So these are wonderful. These actually capitalize on the generation, the visual generation that we have in our classes right now. These kids were raised on the internet, on pictures, on games where they can see people doing things in games. And then we ask them to read words. We have to provide a little bridge to those words. Graphic organizers are a wonderful way to do that. Peer teaching. This has the students teach a section of the reading, whatever it is that you divide up. They have to teach whatever their group is assigned to the rest of the class. So you put the students in groups first. They, of course, have done their homework and read the whole piece right, but maybe they have. You divide the work, the reading up by groups. They discuss how they're going to approach it, who's going to talk, what they're going to say, and they teach their section to the rest of the class. I have to add a little footnote here. I train our teaching assistants at California State University, Bakersfield, and we meet very often and help each other become better teachers. And one of the instructors, way back when she was a TA, and she's now an established faculty member on our campus, was really tired of teaching the same material in grammar, separate from the reading. We don't teach a lot of grammar, but we teach what the students need. When the entire class writes fragments, we pause and teach fragments. But she was teaching this material, and it was never transferring to the paper, which we now know, they have to learn themselves. They have to figure fragments out themselves. Do something interactive like my writing lab. That's how they learn grammar. But anyway, she was teaching it, very frustrated, never translated to their writing. And she finally said, okay, we're dividing up in groups. And your first diagnostic essay, I am going to label your worst grammar problem. You are going to get in that group, and you're going to teach that grammar problem as a group to the rest of the class. We're quarter school, they had all quarter to prepare it. They had to negotiate who teaches what is this grammar error, why am I making these mistakes, and they had to prepare a video. They worked on these videos outside of class for the entire quarter, and this instructor said it was absolutely the best teaching she ever got out of the class. And she started seeing, when these videos started, she started seeing it transfer to their writing. You know that you learned things when you started to teach that you did not know before. I started my career tutoring, and I had to learn grammar. I didn't know it like I know it now. And because I had to teach it in the tutoring center, I had to learn it. So why not put our students in that position? That's exactly what we're doing with peer teaching. Summarizing, it's always a good strategy, but I have a little trick here to add. Summarizing can be very dry and very monotonous. They've had to do it a lot. They don't get the skill very well, but they have had to do it. They have to find main ideas and put them in a paragraph with logical transitions. They have to connect these main ideas. Mentally, logically, it's a wonderful exercise, but it's pretty mechanical. So I stole from another teacher this little add-on that from their paragraph, when you have them summarized, they draft 3 questions. It has made so much of a difference in my teaching because what we do, they turn in their summaries. That's great. I get to grade them. But they also turn in their questions on index cards. I watch where I get the questions, who they come from, and I use the questions for discussion, trying to use the questions of someone who's struggling, not feeling good about their writing. That's why I watch who turns them in, and try to use different questions every time we do the summary. It can be a very, very quick exercise for students to summarize. And then bingo, you're in a course discussion. They've already done their pre-writing and they're ready to talk. Critical annotations. This gets them to analytical thinking, which is very difficult for them. The truth is, students cannot get to analytical thinking unless they move through literal, interpretive, and then critical or analytical. Literal thinking simply asks them to feed back what they are learning. And this is important to them. They have to be able to do it. Often that's all they are able to do in high school. That's not all they're taught, but it's as far as they can get in high school. In the development of their thinking and what they're mastering, they can only regurgitate. That's okay. It's something to start with. But that is why we often have to start so low. We have to find out where they are in their thinking. The next level is interpretation. I can tell you I just built a fire and curled up next to it. And I might ask you, what season do you think it is in my part of the country? And you probably wouldn't struggle too hard with that. You would probably say it's fall or winter. My students would say, how do you know that? You didn't tell me it was fall or winter. So they're not making that association between building a fire, it's probably cold. That's interpretation. That's the middle level before analytical thinking. They have to get to analytical thinking before they will survive in college. That is true, by the way, in both English and math particularly. Then, of course, the other subjects are asking them for analytical thinking. But they have to be able to think analytically in our disciplines. So this strategy asks them, if you've taught them summary, they'll do this pretty easily. They list the author's main ideas on one side of a piece of paper that they've put a line down the middle. And on the other side of the piece of paper, they write their reactions to those main ideas. So left side is author's ideas, right side is students' ideas. Guess what? When they write their papers, they're not looking at a blank page anymore. They have some thoughts down. They have actually responded to the author's main ideas, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got a few critical thoughts in there. The minute you ask a why question, you are asking for critical thinking, but you have to ask a why, not what's going on, what happened, when did it happen, how did it happen. Those are leading up to critical thinking. But you've got to ask why questions if you want to help them get to critical thinking. This next strategy, number 8, is also listing. So you put a line down the center of a page again, but it's a different kind of listing, and you could use this depending on what you're trying to teach. The last one asks the students to react. This one asks the students to put one set of ideas as they occur in the left column and related ideas when those ideas are either repeated or a related idea turns up in the same reading on the right, and then draw lines to those ideas. And you can see very clearly that this helps the students see the structure of the essay. Whoa, this first idea was brought in right in the first paragraph. It's really not mirrored again or repeated or referenced until near the end. And so they draw a line way down to it on the right column. So author's first references to certain ideas on the left, related ideas on the right. Important to draw lines so the students don't just say, oh, here are two lists of ideas. Students do not often know the difference between facts and opinions. A wonderful way to teach them is to have them highlight the facts in one color and the author's opinions in another color. It really makes them, again, read for a purpose you give them. Stay awake, do something, have a pencil in their hands. If they can see the difference between fact and opinion in their reading, they are likely to understand it in their writing. They often think everything written down is a fact, and it's not. This is a great teaching moment, and then they highlight in two colors. One of the things we've got to fight against is an assignment just to highlight the main ideas. And as you know, if you check that kind of work, you get whole paragraphs in yellow, highlighted in yellow. I know you're laughing right now, even though I can't hear you. That's exactly what we get, yellow paragraphs. So this is another way of using highlighters, actually the only way I use highlighters, facts and opinions in two different colors. Last strategy, and here we are at the precipice of writing an analytical paper. They almost could not exist without writing an analytical paper after this, an argumentative paper, highest level thinking paper, because they've worked up to this in their reading. They've got to have an outlet. They've got to put their thoughts somewhere. This final strategy asks them to read with the author and against the author. They start reading against the author. We have to teach them to disagree with the author occasionally. They cannot agree with everything they read, or they won't be able to write anything. They've got to have their own thoughts. So this strategy asks the students to put an X by any facts or opinions. This goes really well with the previous strategy, by the way, that they do not agree with and want to question in some way, like, you know how they say, really? Well, great, put an X there, or put a question mark, whatever you want to teach them, and put an X with something that they disagree with. Then, the reading with the author is putting their own thoughts and opinions on a separate piece of paper. So with this strategy, if you have them use journals or even get out a separate piece of paper, they have a paper available next to them where they're writing their own thoughts, even as they're reading, that's fine, and putting X's where they disagree. So often, the student is putting an X saying, I disagree there, and naturally writing down, this is why, I think this, and so they're writing on the piece of paper as they read. So as you can see, I'm starting to connect the circle between reading and writing. As they are reading, we are asking them to do a strategy that requires them to write, requires them to have a writing utensil in their hands and to use it as they read. Think of this visual as we complete these slides. So I'm going back once again to the reading and writing process and want to talk through how you might carry this strategy over to the writing. First of all, you have assigned some reading. You have probably a wonderful Pearson textbook that you're reading from. They are reading essays. They're doing whatever the pre-reading exercises are. And you are giving them a strategy to use in their reading. So they're reading, they have a pencil in their hands, great. You accomplished the students being in the middle of that circle while they're reading. They have a writing utensil in their hands as they're reading. Now, how in the world does this carry over to writing? What if, and this is how we close the circle, What if we have them actually use the same reading strategy to annotate the writing prompt, the draft of their own essay, and then use it to revise and edit? So let's say you chose highlighting opinions and facts. They would actually highlight a writing prompt and get ready to write. When they finish a draft, the trick here is to have the students see their draft as a piece of reading. It's wonderfully empowering because the students say, wait, holy cow, I'm treating my own writing just like the professional essay that I read. You could also work peer evaluation in here. Share writing with each other and have them use the reading strategy on their writing. So they've annotated the writing prompt, personal essays, graphic organizer, whatever you want to use. Use the same strategy. You're teaching one strategy for this whole essay. Have them annotate their writing or another person's writing, and then have them revise and edit based on their annotations. That is a complete package, and that is truly teaching reading and writing as a single process. What I would love for you to do now, I know I can't see you doing it, but I'm going to feel whether you really do this. Jot down some notes about a lesson that uses a reading strategy to teach both reading and writing. Wrap your instruction around something you are going to teach right now, tomorrow, the next week. You know, if you take a minute to do this, please, 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 you know you will take something away from this session with you, something that you might try in class. If you don't do this, you're likely to not make a change in your teaching. Please take a minute to do this. Moment of silence. You're jotting notes. Thank you. I could feel you doing it. So, if we want to become better teachers, and we all do who are sitting here, what professional development plans would you like to help you refresh and invigorate your teaching? This really, I'm asking you this to not only help Pearson design what's next for you. Pearson is incredibly invested in professional development. Many publishers are, but Pearson has an amazing website, follow-up conversations planned for you, and then these wonderful webinars. I think that is such a help to us, and I love that they're doing it. Pearson, thank you for leading the way in this effort. We do need professional development. We need to talk to each other, if nothing else, and keep our network alive, do our own active teaching instead of passive teaching. So just think about what you need, because I'm headed to a place where you can express your ideas. Pearson has a wonderful site called Pedagogy and Practice, and there is the website right there for you. As I understand from Pearson, you're going to get all these slides, so you will have this. I'm sure Amy Berger will remind you of this as you leave all of the sessions today. But for my session in particular, and then I'm setting you up for the next session, which is about professional development, what workshops would help you? What venue would you prefer? How often would you participate in professional development? All of these answers would help those of us who want to talk to you more and want to plan things for you. So I hope that you will continue the conversation. I would like to start right now with any questions that you might have. I would love to hear them. And then I will be available and coming in and out of Pedagogy and Practice, that website there that you just had. It's called Pedagogy and Practice, sponsored by Pearson. I will be coming in and out of that site to talk to you as you have questions for me even in the future. But let's start the conversation right now, and open this up for questions.
Hey, Kim, it's Amy.
Yes.
I wanted to tell you, first of all, there are numerous comments here that are just saying, we just want to say thank you to Kim. She's talking about the most important topic, and the presentation has been very clear and practical. So I wanted to tell you about those enthusiastic comments that are coming in, first of all.
I love that. Thank you.
And, you know, so Kim, I was thinking as you were talking, and you know, I lived in Texas for a long time, and I'm in North Carolina now. Both you know, states that where developmental studies has been moving through substantive redesign, specifically to integrate reading and writing curricula, and there's a lot of anxiety, not just in these states, but in many of the others where reading and writing are being brought into kind of a new relationship. Anxiety specifically about training and professional development. And I know that, you know, you have been teaching reading and writing in this integrated or holistic way for a long time. I know that you also do a lot of professional development stuff for the California State University system. And I just wondered if you might comment a little bit on that, like how can people best go about, you know, reading instructors preparing to teach writing and writing instructors preparing to teach reading? What would you say to folks who are feeling anxious about that?
That's very natural. I'll tell you that's very natural because the curriculum in many schools, not even North Carolina and Texas isolated, but many schools have a reading class and a writing class. And I've talked to people who have had to teach in that format for years. But even with them separated, even if you're in a school where they are separated, I believe strongly that the students will not learn how to write without reading and not learn how to read without writing. So if you're in a reading class, even if somebody's watching over your shoulder, you certainly could introduce writing as a writing to learn. People do it outside of English all the time. Do you have what I just taught you? I'm giving you an essay question to find out. So they write to learn. Same thing if you're assigned to a writing class. Most people I know teach with a reader. So teach a writing with a reader. So we fill the kids' heads up with a subject that we want them to write on. We find that the kids can't very easily produce writing out of their imaginations anymore. So we give them reading to teach writing. Mm-hmm. Why not link those with a strategy so that I'll tell you how I teach these strategies, by the way, because my students then go away with their favorite. We're in a 10-week quarter, and I teach one strategy a week. They really learn all these strategies, and I package them with their reading and writing, and they really learn them for the week. And then we do another strategy. And I tell them that if they choose their favorite strategy and take it away with them, they will raise their grades across the curriculum. And they love it. I mean, they tune in. But that's how I work even with separated classes. It's very anxiety-producing, Amy. You're absolutely right. And I'd like to give you out there one source, and I'll put more on pedagogy and practice. But there is a source that defines higher education literacy for California. It was a group that worked together for 1 year and surveyed 3,500 college teachers across the curriculum to define academic literacy. And if you Google academic literacy, the first item that comes up, I don't have the URL right here, I'd have to close the screen down, but I'll put it on the site, and I'll also tell you it'll come up first. It is written by this academic senates in the University of California, the California State University, and the California Community Colleges. We worked together for 12 months to come up with a statement defining academic literacy in higher education. And I'll be darned if every single person we interviewed said reading and writing are connected. So that's at least, it's wonderful reading for you to kind of prepare yourself. And it also is some ammunition for you to work with your administration and having some language to say these ought to be connected. Does that help, Amy?
Yeah, very much, Kim. And I did just find that that URL while you were talking.
Oh, great.
And I posted it in the questions pane. I sent it to everyone, so I think folks can see it there. Or Jean-Pierre, if you want to make me the presenter, I can show it really quickly in case people want to write that down. But that is a great source, Kim. And I had forgotten about that. I'll also add it to the Pedagogy and Practice site.
And it's really wonderful for our listeners. Just read the executive summary. It's 7 pages long. What follows is in the back our questionnaire, how many people we talk to, and then we align in California, although we're changing to Common Core state standards in high school, we align our high school standards with our college standards. That's where the rubber meets the road. If we're not talking to our high school colleagues and making sure we connect with them, I don't know if we're really doing our jobs fully. So we are very focused in California on connecting high school, the end of high school to the beginning of college. And we also have our expository reading and writing curriculum, which we work on with our high school colleagues. So that's what this leads to. This academic literacy led to the program expository reading and writing curriculum.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kim. And as you say, we'll update the Pedagogy and Practice site. This is the site, and we're going to create a featured exhibit in this space right here for this conference, and it will house the proceedings, the recorded sessions, also the PowerPoints themselves for folks to download, and we'll put other resources in there. I'll include the link to the Cal State Academic Senate document that Kim is talking about. This is an example of one of the exhibits, and we'll just so we'll have all the sessions in here and those links. And actually, there's another presentation of yours already in here, Kim. The 10 maxims for developmental students, which I love so much. So so anyone who's in the session now, if you want to hear more from Kim, you can come right here and hear this now, or we'll have her presentation and all the presentations from today's conference up on the Pedagogy and Practice site probably by next week, we hope. So depends on how busy Jean-Pierre is. Yes, ma'am.
This is Kim again. Can I say one more thing about the reading that they might consider teaching? I know some people, rightly so, are very, very connected to creative literature as opposed to expository literature. The creative literature being short stories and maybe even full-length books. Those are very, very important that the students read. They get a lot of those in high school, thank goodness. But I think we really have to concentrate on teaching nonfiction in our freshman composition courses, because we are preparing them to succeed and we hope excel across the curriculum. You can certainly add creative literature. We have all of our students read a novel. We have a first-year experience package, and they have to read a novel along with their freshman composition course. But we focus on nonfiction. It is absolutely a different way of thinking, teaching nonfiction, and our high school colleagues support that. They say it really is different. So we're making that transition with them.
Yeah, that I was going to ask you when you were talking earlier about you have that 10-week quarter and so you cover a different
Strategy
strategy,
every week.
and
Uh-huh.
and you were saying that the students kind of develop favorites. I was just kind of
Yes.
curious, what are some of the favorite strategies among your students?
The lists are most favorite. Second is graphic organizers.
Mm-hmm.
They like to draw the reading. Once they figure out that they can draw the reading, they don't need to fit it into a template. They can draw circles and show how the ideas in the reading are related to one another. They
Mm-hmm.
really like that. I'm telling you, if I had somebody who taught me that I could draw my readings instead of outline or whatever we did linearly, I would have learned so much more,
Mm-hmm.
to see that relationship in more of a picture than a list that I had to memorize. But yeah, the lists are most popular. They just start naturally making lists. And then I
Yeah.
have to move them to the why questions. And then the second is drawing.
That I guess that doesn't surprise me. I was thinking yesterday. Actually, I had a parent-teacher conference about my son is in the 5th grade, and the teacher was talking about using PowerPoints to kind of to let kids kind of storyboard their ideas. And
Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting thing. And I started thinking about how, like, if I'm preparing, it used to be that if you were preparing like a conference session or something, you would start with the paper and you would kind of drill it down and sort of make it more presentational. But anymore, I feel like I often start with the PowerPoint, and I wonder if it's that same impulse toward a kind of graphic or a visual organization of ideas that is very different than the straight text-based formula. But like I would never go toward a straight graphic organizer because I'm very anchored in written text. And
Right.
so I think the PowerPoint is kind of an interesting mediating space between maybe digital natives who are perhaps more inclined toward straight visual and those of us who come from a more traditional literacy background and are anchored to the text. So it was just something I've been thinking about. And when you were talking about the graphic organizers and the student strategies, I, you know, harkened back to my personal experience as I am wont to do. So.
Amy, that is just a perfect example. I mean, think all of you out there of your 5th grade experience. It did not have PowerPoints in it. Our students come to us so much more advanced electronically. We have to acknowledge that. We have to let those things into our classroom or we're going to alienate our students. We have to let them look things up on their phones when we don't know something. Yes, they text a little less in college than high school. Yes, we can stop it by walking around in the classroom. But if we don't value and integrate some of the devices that they use every day of their lives, we're going to start creating a very negative distance between our students and us. So,
Well, and, yeah.
my heavens, 5th grade PowerPoint, I just think that's amazing and very exciting.
It's just interesting too because it highlights the way in which our thinking and our doing are connected through through literacies. That the way you think in a PowerPoint is like a storyboard, and
Yes.
it's almost like old-fashioned outlining, which
Yes,
I'm a
exactly.
big fan of. And you can even select the outline view in
Yes,
PowerPoint. And so I'm really kind of intrigued by the idea of how these things are linked to the way we think through our writing, or the way that students think through their writing. And it's not just a different mode of delivery, but a different cognitive process as well.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think we have to encourage that. You and I were taught to outline first before we wrote. We
Mm-hmm.
now know that is not good, the very detailed outline. A sketch outline is fine, but if we do a detailed outline, the left side of the brain closes down and doesn't generate new thoughts as you're writing. You have your outline. You don't have to think
Right.
anymore. I always outlined my papers after I wrote them and then put them on top and stapled them like I did at first my whole life. And I never knew that is really the way to keep your brain open while you're writing is to outline last, just to check yourself.
It's so interesting, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's funny.
Yeah.
So many things we've learned.
And still have to learn.
Yes, yes, and still have to learn. And I'm so excited to hear what Mike Rose says next about professional development, because I agree with him.
As I am. And
Yeah.
Kim, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it, and I so enjoyed talking with you and hearing from you as always.
It is my pleasure, and I feel the warmth out there. Thank you for attending, and I'll see you on Pedagogy in Practice.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back at 12 noon Eastern Time with professional development, why it matters, and how to make it meaningful with Mike Rose. I hope you'll join us.